Hey, let's see what happens from there. So far, it's been entertaining already. You might notice my voice sounds a little off. It's because I'm sick. Yay. Not coronavirus, just virus. Just a sore throat, stuff like that. Makes me sound all weird. Probably makes me slightly grumpy too. You know, the whole dying on the inside thing. So maybe it'll make it entertaining as I attack small children and record it for video.
Yes,
Who knows? Fingers crossed. Let's see. From there... Sorry, this thing got all wonky. I blame you, wonky thing. You looked fine when I started, and now you're all like, rah. That's exactly what I said. All right, and then let's see, Glow Party. Glow Party coming up. Camp to come, so turn things in. All late work due by Friday. Apparently, I have a thing of raisins in my pocket. Pay no attention to those. I'm not offering them to you. They were in my pocket for me. And then, once again, Glow Party, they start selling tickets again today. The Glow Party dance is Friday, which it says over there, Glow Party. I see you. It's called Ignoring You. And then, for the 9-week assessment.
That's crazy.
Tomorrow, I am giving you back your 9-week assessment essays because I can't give them back to you yet because I have kids who are still taking them today. I know I showed this to you yesterday, but apparently right after I showed this to you, many of you just went blink, old man doesn't know what he's talking about, and then just did your own thing. The average grade, at least in first period, out of 32 points was 20. And that's because it came down to the whole following directions thing. So when I hand you back your thing tomorrow, you do have the option of redoing it and then turning it back in. The drawback is you cannot get over a 30 out of 32. You can get up to a 30, and pretty much what it's going to come down to is, can you follow directions? Here's what the biggest issue was for all of my classes, including those of you watching at home who want to do this. The biggest issue was the middle article that talked about the 4 traits. Almost everyone in this class didn't talk about that article at all. That was the main article you had to talk about. That was the primary thing you had to reference. If all you did was tell me what happened with the homeless man, you failed. If all you did was tell me what happened with the teacher, you failed. That's not what the question asked. The question said, what character trait did they demonstrate and explain why? Your answer was a completely different thing about him giving a ring. That was not the question. It's like me saying, why are video games affecting kids today? And you go on a rant about why the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is awesome. Yeah, you did talk about a video game. You just didn't answer the question. So when I give it back to you, you can look through yours and go, oh yeah, I did none of those directions. And then you're going to fix it and then turn it back in. Or just embrace your grade and be like, I love you, little fuzzy F. You're my favorite. And you get to choose from there. Either way, you have until Friday to fix it. If you're happy with it, yay. If you're not happy with it, yay. So I figured I'd just go through again to try and help you. Did every kid fail? No. I had a number of kids who did well. It's on Skyward, as I sent out last night. Addie, you're so patient. What's up?
I know I'm patient. So, the Glow Party. Oh, you're gonna be sick.
Yeah, you're welcome. Focus.
Okay, so, the Glow Party is only for Glow Toddlers, right?
Jace.
Can I take a picture of that?
Sure, if you want to.
No, Addie.
Now, if it helps, I had a whole bunch of kids take pictures of it yesterday, and it didn't help them at all.
I need to see this.
Now, what I'll probably end up doing is tonight, I'll send this out in a remind again. But, you know, my goal is trying to help you guys. It just tends to be that a lot of you guys ignore me when I try to help you.
See,
Hey, love.
What are they getting or the parts taken off? Like,
One more time in English?
what are other parts of the thing that...
Yeah, there could be. Like a lot of times it was for introduction and conclusion. The part where it says, do not make it generic, a lot of you guys made generic ones. As an example, a lot of you guys, your introduction was, integrity is great. We should all have integrity. Do you have integrity? If you don't have integrity, that makes you a bad person. Let's talk about integrity. Who knows what integrity is? And so that was part of your issue. To make it not generic, you had to talk about integrity is what makes you a good person and makes you honest. The homeless man showed integrity by making good choices. The teacher showed integrity, and you have to actually talk about the articles. Most of you did not, which is why you lost points on that one. So that helps also. Gavin,
If I do it again, can I write more paragraph?
Yeah. You're going to start all over again and do as much as you want that you think will fix it.
Wait, so we can take it home?
Abby?
Don't I have integrity?
Right. So then we're good to go there. And yes, you will be doing this at home. I'm going to give it back to you, and you're going to have until Friday to give it back to me. So we're not doing it in class, because tomorrow we're learning more about Olympians, and Thursday Olympians, and also the library. And then Friday you have a quiz, so you're not going to be doing it in class, most likely.
It's a quiz.
Oh.
Then, starting probably Wednesday or Thursday of this week, I'm going to give you a 24-hour window to redo your camp groups. I've deleted all of them because so many kids messed it up and hurt my brain and made me grumpy. So I just went through and went, delete the entire file. So now, if you're planning on going to camp and you want to have friends in your group, I'm going to have you fix that. So I will reopen it. Not yet. I will let you know. And I'll give you a 24-hour window. What you're going to do now is figure out how to properly follow directions, because apparently that's a challenge. So as an example, here are the ones that I got where kids cannot follow directions. So on this one, your last name, first name. If you don't put last name, first name, I delete you. Automatically, problem solved. Because if you can't figure out how to do the first part of it, I go ahead and delete you. Next up, as you go through, if you do not do last name, first name for each kid, I delete you. See the ones that say those are not last name, first name, you get deleted. If you put numbers in front of it, you get deleted because a number is not a letter. And then down here, if you do this weird thing where for some reason you just list a ton of kids in there, you get deleted because you can't follow directions. And then same thing down here where they somehow did first name, like went back and forth between all kinds of different, I delete it. So as I went through there, it started driving me nuts. So I just figured I'd let you know, when you get the second chance to do it, you're going to want to try and actually follow directions this time. And again, I'll send it out in a remind, and I'll say, hey, it is now open for 24 hours. If you are wanting friends in your group, make sure you follow directions this time. If you submit it more than once, I charge you 3 B points every time you have to submit a new one.
Oh, Toby.
So you're going to make sure that you do it correctly the first time, or you have lots of B points to spend. Because I had some kids who submitted it like 8 times.
Toby. And
it drove me nuts. So this time you get 1 time, and then 3 B points each time beyond that. I have no idea, Schulenberg, some kids are special. You're going to ask how they butcher your name.
Yeah, and
some kids are special.
Does it count like if you spell their name wrong?
Yep, that's why you're gonna. If you don't know how to spell your friend's name, they're not a friend because it goes in there alphabetically. So I guess you have the next 2 days to go talk to your friends and go, hey, this is awkward, but how do you spell your name? Because if not, they're not going to be in your group. Leah.
Will you tell us which one of us didn't do it correctly?
Yes. If you're wearing shoes and you're at school, it was you. Because I got too frustrated and deleted them, so no, I'm not going through and telling each kid. If you can't figure out how to follow directions, it was you, boo.
So is everybody?
Right, any other questions?
Kidding me.
No, I'm not calling anymore. You've now run out of questions. All right. So any other besides her questions as far as this goes? Yay. It's not open right now. Right now it's open for kids filling out the Ebola questions.
Oh my God.
And then after a while I'm going to say, Ebola question, kids, you're out of luck. And we're going to switch back to this to help you out.
Put my name.
All right. Now we get to move on.
They spelled it incorrectly so many times.
So many kids are, what? There we go. So now open up your notebook. We're going to finish out going through this. Or if you have a random thing on your desk I'm getting ready to take from you, that'd be awful. Let's see. So we have this. You guys are ready to go there. Let's see. Yes. And I created a new thing for you guys today too.
Yeah, I saw you editing it yesterday.
I know. Zeus. So what do we say for Zeus?
Point and hold lightning bolt.
Now, I think I flip-flopped my 2 categories from yours because it made it easier on me.
Yeah.
So if I did, life goes on. We'll figure it out. So what do you say for Zeus?
King of all gods.
And the action for him?
Point and hold lightning.
There you go. Zeus, king of all gods. Our next one to get thrown is?
Hera.
What do we say for her?
Queen of all gods.
Hand like crown.
And then you don't say that one. You demonstrate it. There you go.
Can we do this?
Sparkly.
That looks like a demon.
Exactly. Meet Mr. Broviak.
And then I'm not Hera.
That's not Hera.
And then Poseidon is
God of the ocean.
nicely done, and a hand sign for him. So you should not be near a pool over spring break. After Poseidon, our next one to get a throne is
Demeter.
no. Hades. Why is Hades not listed?
Because he loves his power.
So our next one to get a throne and keep it is
Demeter.
Nicely done. What
God
do
of
you say
grain.
for her?
God of green.
And her hand sign. Our next one to get a throne is Hestia. But Hestia's not up there. Why is Hestia not up there?
Because
And we're going to get to that story probably tomorrow, maybe Thursday, about why she's not listed. So then he ran out of siblings. So who does he start filling in the thrones with after that?
Friends.
Oh, nicely done. So this is where the kids come in, and Hephaestus and who's Hephaestus' brother?
Aries.
I meant to have that one up there, but I'm out of order. So with Hephaestus, he's going to be the god of metalsmiths.
Yeah.
Did I not give you guys the full story of Hephaestus?
No.
So I'll give you guys the story of Hephaestus in a moment. And then before I can get there, because my other classes have already gotten past Hephaestus, no shame. On that one, the action we're going to do is every time we see him, it's going to be doing the little hammery thing. So this is where some of you guys should probably never do home repair because I'm watching your hammers go everywhere. So you're going to be hammering something like that. All right. Let me give you our story with young Hephaestus. On this one, let's go to... Yeah. So back to this time.
Yeah.
Zeus now realizes he's going to start filling in thrones with his children. He and Hera end up having 4 kids. 2 sons, 2 daughters. Hephaestus and Ares are the 2 sons, and then 2 daughters, Hebe and Eilithyia. And Hebe and Eilithyia don't get thrones because the gods are sexist. Hebe gets the next best thing to a throne. She gets to become the waitress of the gods, what's called a cupbearer. Not cup bear, but cup bearer, which means person who brings drinks to you. And so Hebe gets to live on Mount Olympus and bring drinks to the god. Eilithyia, his other daughter, gets nothing. She just kind of gets booted to the side like we don't care about her, and it's all kinds of depressing. The 2 sons, Hephaestus and Ares, do eventually get thrones. But Hephaestus makes a poor choice. When Hephaestus... Well, quick. There's 2 different versions of how Hephaestus has issues. He is the god of metalworking, but what else do we know about him?
Cripple.
And those 2 stories are connected to each other. So it goes when Hephaestus was a wee young little lad, and he was running around on Mount Olympus, and he heard yelling on Mount Olympus between his parents. Goes running in there, sees this big fight happening between mom and dad, and tries to do his best to get involved. But turns out Zeus and Hera are yelling about the fact that Zeus keeps making his friends, and Hera does not approve of his friendships. And Hephaestus sides with Hera and says, "Daddy, you should stop making new friends. You're making mommy upset, and you're a bad daddy." Zeus does not like having his wife yell at him, and the idea of having his son yell at him makes him even grumpier. So what he ends up doing is picking up his young son and shaking him. And it's like, "You should not yell at your father." Then he picks up his son and throws him as hard as he can. Well, you, one, should not throw children. That's typically a bad thing to do. But it's even worse when your house is on top of a mountain, because then when you chuck your child, there's no lawn for them to fall in. So when he throws Hephaestus, he goes flying out over the ocean with his little kid arms flapping behind him. Flappy, 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 flappy. And it looks bad until we find out he gets lucky and he sees an island out there in the middle of the water. So he does his best to try and aim for the island so he doesn't land in the water and drown, being the wee little child he is. Manages to redirect himself, land on island. But when he does, it all lands on one leg. And that one leg basically turns into an accordion. All the bones get disintegrated in there. Normally, not a big issue because the gods get to heal back from this. But gods could only heal back if they drank a thing called nectar and ambrosia, which was like god Gatorade. And once you drank it enough as a god, you sort of were able to heal all the time. Zeus is so angry at young Hephaestus, he says no one can give him nectar and ambrosia. No titan may assist this child. If you do, you suffer the same fate. So Hephaestus is forced to grow up on this island all by himself. and his leg grows back looking like a Z. Whenever he goes walking on the island, he ends up like walking in circles because one leg is longer than the other, and it's all kinds of awful. Grows up on here until he becomes a young man with one short leg and one long leg, really angry at his father. Till one day, as he's walking around this island, he happens to notice at the top of this big mountain that's been on the island, there's thunder coming from the top of it. And who does he assume the thunder is going to be coming from? Zeus. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go confront my father and yell at him for crippling me for life, and I'm finally going to get it off my chest. So he starts climbing up this mountain to go confront Zeus. Gets about halfway up the mountain and realizes the thunder is not coming from outside the mountain. The thunder is actually coming from inside the mountain, which he thinks is weird that Zeus is hiding inside the mountain. But he's like, you can't hide from me, old man. So he finds a cave and manages to work his way inside of the mountain and finds this gigantic open cavern inside of there. And inside this giant open cavern is not Zeus. Instead, there's a giant furnace where they're in the process of making weapons. And he finds 3 gods in there. Gigantic creatures he's never seen before. And that would be the
Cyclops.
These 3 Cyclops take pity on him and go, what is wrong? And he explains that how he got crippled and how no Titan can help him. And the Cyclops go, well, you're in luck. We're not Titans, and we don't care what Zeus has to say because we're bigger than him, so we do get to help you. So the 3 Cyclops then begin to train Hephaestus in what they are good at. And what are the Cyclops good at? Making weapons. And so they begin the process of teaching him how to make weapons. Hephaestus ends up being so good at making all of these weapons that Zeus ends up noticing it and realizing if he doesn't want future gods to overthrow him, he needs to become friends with Hephaestus. So he goes down and apologizes to Hephaestus, says, hey, you and I should be friends. How about we hang out again? And Hephaestus eventually forgives him, with the story coming up here later today in a moment we're going to get to. And finally, Hephaestus gets back up to Mount Olympus and gets a throne, and everything is good. So that's how Hephaestus becomes the god of metalsmiths. He gets trained by all of them, and that's how he got crippled by his dad chucking him out the window. There is another story that says he got chucked out a window because Hera took one look at him and thought he was an ugly baby and said a baby this ugly does not deserve to be on Earth, and ended up throwing him out the window also. But that's not the as common one. Usually it's more Zeus doing the throwing, but I have heard that version of the story. So now, Hephaestus' brother, almost forgot. And Hephaestus' brother is?
Ares.
So now we have Ares.
God of war.
And what we know about him?
God of war.
He's the god of dirty war.
He is the god of dirty war. Which, well, not just dirty war, but he is the god of wussy war. In the fact that he does not care how he wins as long as he does. He is a bully. He was also incredibly attractive and incredibly good looking. He was thought to be sort of like the second most attractive god on Mount Olympus. But more importantly, he was just overall not a good person. So on this one, for the hand sign to help you, I wanted to teach you, go ahead and put them on my calendar there, the god of fighting, but along with god of fighting, the god of wussy. So this is going to go back to my junior high days. You might not know this from looking at me now, but back in my junior high days, I was a little bit on the book nerd wussy side. Fighting was not my strength. So I developed my own fighting style that I'm going to teach you now to help you out. So when I was a child and the bullies would come at me, one of the first things I would do is you figured out that you have to protect yourself from the throat punch because the throaty bit is your squishy bits. So you take whatever your prominent punching arm is and you want to go across your throat. That way if they come at your neck, you're going to be well protected. But then I also wanted to be able to protect my face. And I figured the football players wear a helmet, and if that helmet helps protect the face, I'm going to do the same thing. So then I would bring my other hand around and it goes in front of the face like a big football helmet. Thus, my neck is protected, and my face is protected, and it gives you an arm free for attacking, and it allows you to come at your enemies at any time like that. So, this is what we're going to do for Ares, is what I call the wuss fighter stance, and it proved very effective whenever bullies would come at me, and I was like, oh, you and me, we're going to go, it's on. And when you come at someone like that, when they hit the ground laughing, it buys you a lot of time to sprint down the hallway. It has saved my life many times, so I'm going to pass that along to you. So again, dominant arm across throat.
What about a gut?
Non-dominant arm here. Gut, who cares about that? You have to protect the brainy bit and the throaty bits. If you have to protect your gut, that's why you have your leg. So you just feel like that. There are a number of different additions and styles you can work into it as you guys perfect your own particular fighting style.
I'm just going to go into like a
Feels a little judgy. So now, Zeus has filled in the next 2 thrones, but he still has several thrones left to fill in. So now our issue comes in. He needs to have more children. But he's done having children with his wife. So here's where some of Zeus's friendliness comes in. So Zeus starts going out to make new friends with which to have other children. So it's going to bring in these 2 gods, Artemis and Apollo, known as the twins. Artemis and Apollo are these 2 gods here. Artemis, the one's hugging a moon. Apollo with the sun in the background. Over here, behind where Matthew is, we have Artemis with the moon behind her, Apollo with the sun behind him. Here, Apollo with the sun, and Artemis with the moon behind her on that one.
I thought you guys
They were considered twin gods because of what they represent. What do they represent? Sun. I said that enough times at work. Good job. So the whole sun and moon thing. But how they came to exist is a bit of a story. So,
Did they get more from
there was a titan by the name of Leto, Leto. And Zeus one day came down and saw Leto hanging out at this pond. And he starts to be a little flirty with her, and he's like, hey, baby, how you doing? But the issue is, Leto was not what we call a moron. And she knew that Zeus was married to Hera, and that Hera had a horrible temper. And so when Zeus tries to hit on Leto, Leto throws a hand in his face. And is like, no, I'm going to have no part of this. I respect your wife, and I'm not going to be anywhere near you because bad things happen, so gets to step and fool. Zeus apparently does not take this very well. He's like, fine, whatever, we'll see about that. So he disappears, and she continues to hang out at this pond. But then he sees her talking to all these like swans and ducks and like animals that are around the pond area, and he decides to try and manipulate that. So he comes up with an idea, because what superpower does every guy have?
Transform into an animal.
So that's what he does. He turns himself into a giant swan and goes and lands in the pool. Kasplashity. And then Leto sees him. She's like, oh my goodness, you're a really big swan, aren't you? And he's like, swanny, swan, swan, swan. And wiggles back and forth. And she's like, oh my goodness, you're the best swan ever. And she goes over and like plays with the swan. I don't know how you play with the swan, but the story says you play. Maybe like she tosses a rock and he's like, and goes after her or something like that. Or she stands on his back and like surfs around the pool or something like that. But she hangs out and plays with the swan for a while, to the point where eventually she tells the swan, Swan, I love you. You are the best swan ever. If only you were a person, Swan, we could fall in love and we could be together forever. It's too bad that you're a swan. And Zeus, as a swan, goes, huh? And he then, wrong picture, turns back into Zeus. That other picture's coming in just a moment. I thought I had one of him turning back in. So then Swan turns back into Zeus, and Zeus goes, gotcha, baby. And she's like, oh, Zeus. Okay, fine. And they're friendly. Problem is with them being friendly, she gets pregnant. Once she's pregnant, Hera finds out, because that's just a thing that Hera does. And Hera is irate. She's like, how dare you be friendly with my man? And Leto's like, it's not my fault, he was a swan. And Hera's like, that only makes it creepier. And so she decides that she is going to punish Leto. She goes, here's what I'm going to do. Because you were friendly with my man, and now you're pregnant, as long as your feet are touching his kingdom, you cannot give birth. And Leto's like, how are you going to stop me from giving birth? And here's where Hera snaps her fingers, and out of the ground comes this gigantic anaconda. It comes rising up out of the ground, this huge snake, like the size of like 12 buses, and lands on the ground. And Hera goes, oh, because of that. And the snake, roar, takes off after her. Leto takes off running and screaming. with the big snake chasing after her. And Zeus goes, oh man, sucks to be you. All right, and then goes back up to his area. She continues to run for days on end, and then weeks on end, and then months on end, and then years on end without giving birth. And she ends up getting pregnanter and pregnanter and pregnanter because she cannot stop to have this baby. And so as she runs, she just gets pregnanter and pregnanter, and her belly's like coming up, and she has like push out of the way when she's running. And every time that she runs by Mount Olympus, she curses up at Zeus. She's like, I hate you, Zeus. And after a while, Zeus begins to feel like he's a little responsible for this. He's like, I kind of feel bad, like I might be responsible for what's happening to this girl. And she's like, of course you are, as she goes by. So Zeus decides to solve this problem to help her. It's like, all right, fine. Here's the plan we're going to come up with. So he goes and talks to his brother Poseidon. He's like, Poseidon, I'm going to need your help to free this poor girl. Poseidon goes, you know what, brother? I got your back. So he goes down and sends a message via Hermes down to this girl. And it says, here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you run until you get to the coastline, and then you are going to make like a giant track star and leap from there onto this island. Everyone knows islands are just giant floating bobbers attached to the ground via a land stream. Common knowledge. So he said, Poseidon, what you're going to do is separate that land stream. Once it is no longer connected to the ground, it is no longer part of my kingdom. Thus, the spell will be broken, and she can give birth. And it works. Oh, by the way, I tried to Google the phrase running snake to see if it would pop up with something. Apparently, that was the best picture that came up, and it made me smile. So that's your running snake. I also typed in running pregnant woman. Surprisingly enough, there were not a lot of pictures that came up for that one. So this is my running pregnant picture. So use your imagination on that one. So she runs and then jumps onto the island. Snake follows her, and right before the snake can launch itself into the air and land on top of her, Poseidon comes up, does his little dance, separates that, thus breaking the spell. As soon as it is no longer connected, the snake loses track of her, gets stuck on the very edge of the coastline over there, and does like a little snake, and can't figure out where she went. As soon as she stops running, she's like, and then gives birth to 2 full-grown children. And out pop these 2 babies, who are really grumpy because they've spent their entire childhood inside of their mother. So one of the first things they do is make bows and arrows. They go to the trees that are nearby, and they use those to make the bow bit. Now, your thought might be, Mr. Broviak, where are they going to get strings? You're in luck. If you've ever seen a child being born, there's a thing that connects the child to the mother. That's what they use for the string. They do. They rip off their own umbilical cords and tie it onto it and use that as their bow and arrows. They then turn around and they shoot the snake dead and kill it. Once these 2 kids are born, I thought I had another picture on there. They then become Artemis and Apollo. Hera actually feels bad once she sees these 2 kids, and she's like, you know what? I actually feel a little bit guilty about all this because you had to spend your childhood inside of your mother. Why would Hera feel a connection to that?
Because she's the
American. That's what
Wasn't she?
Because that's what happened to her. Where was Hera's childhood spent?
In her dad's stomach.
Inside. And so because of that, she actually feels a connection to Artemis and Apollo. She's like, I may hate your mother, but I don't feel so bad about you. So she actually agrees with Zeus and allows the 2 of them to become the next 2 Olympians on Mount Olympus. And so Artemis and Apollo become the 2 Olympians who get thrones after her own children. With Artemis, if we look up yonder, pretty much you're going to see that thing that she has on her back is the big thing and the thing she's hugging. Over here, the thing that she's shooting and the thing behind her. Over here, the thing that she's shooting and the thing that's behind her. So she's going to be the god of 2 things, which is going to be moon, and with that one specifically hunting. She was the god of taking your bow and arrow and then going out and like trying to hunt and kill a thing. So god of moon and hunting. For our hand sign for this one, much like many of our other posters, she's almost always striking the exact same pose. So we're going to have you strike that one. You're going to channel your inner Katniss Everdeen. Then you're going to do the whole, and you're going to pull back. Again, this is where we discover that many of you should probably never go hunting. And you're like, Mr. Broviak, I have a bow and arrow. And I'm like, you do not have a bow and arrow, but that's okay.
I do.
Now, with Apollo, we'll see the fact that he also has bow and arrow thing. And over there, not so much bow and arrow thing. Over here, not so much bow and arrow thing. He technically was a god of the bow and arrow, but he was not big on hunting. He was more for sports and showing off. Like if you had to impress a girl, and you're like, throw that apple into the air, and you hit it, that was more what he was all about. He had more important things to do. His more important things to do was macking on ladies. Because Apollo was the hottest, most attractive god to exist. The other thing he was important about was he was the sun. He was the god that drove the sun chariot from one mountain to the other. So he was the sun. So for him, the two most important things that are going to pop up for him is the fact that he was the god of the sun and he is the god of attractive people. So he was the god of sun and hotties. And those kind of go well together. Hotties. And it turns out there is a hand sign. Both if you're being burnt by the sun and if you see that particular hottie fella, then there's the same hand sign for that one. Now, you might interpret it slightly differently, but for me, when you see the hot fella, it's more about the hand thing, like, whoa, buddy, look at that guy right there. And so that's what I have you do there, to fan yourself like you're hot. Or like you see someone else who is hot. Multiple T's.
That's not for girls.
Hey, Jay.
Wait,
Done.
what?
Oh.
Why wouldn't Apollo be the god of the king of the gods since he's the god of the sun?
Why wouldn't he be the king of the gods?
Yeah, because he's the sun.
He is, but that was actually, we're going to find out, it's not a very exciting job because all you had to do, spend all day was driving a car. It's like being a salesman where all you're doing is driving.
Well, couldn't
And so
you
eventually we're going to
smash
find
the
out
sun?
he quits that job and has someone else do it instead so he can spend more time doing his favorite thing, which is macking on ladies. That's what Apollo really liked to do. Our next one now to get a throne is going to be one that actually is not a son or daughter of Zeus. She is actually like a great aunt of Zeus. A girl by the name of Aphrodite. This goes all the way back to this guy by the name of Uranus. And in the story of Uranus, we talked about his son doing the choppy thing, and every time, it's like on the screen, choppy on the, every time that he chopped into his father, what happened?
He dropped.
And I said it would form monsters, creatures, and gods. Well, one of those was Aphrodite. One of those choppy bits hit the ocean out in the middle of the world. When it did, it formed Aphrodite. And she just floated out in the ocean for thousands of years, just floating out there. And eventually Poseidon became king of all the oceans. But Poseidon is not like Zeus. Poseidon's not quite girl crazy that Zeus was. So with her floating out there,